মানি স্কোয়ার, টাকা এবং এর সাথে আমাদের সম্পর্কের ব্যাপারে কিশোর।
Good morning, Zarif.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, thank you for joining the podcast.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
So, তোমার সাথে আমার প্রায় 26 বছরের পরিচয়।
I know
It's a long time.
we're all revealing our ages, which is maybe not a good thing. But anyway, you still look like you are 27 years old or 21 years old when I first met you.
You're very kind.
Yeah, no worries.
You're very kind. Congratulations on the latest BCG report. I think it's a fantastic report for Bangladesh, and thanks for championing that.
Of course. I mean, I must tell you, I've been overwhelmed with the level of support and also the outreach that I've received. I think there's a real pent-up interest in Bangladesh as a country. I think the entrepreneurs of Bangladesh want the rest of the world to know how they're doing. So it's been really exciting to be part of that story.
Great. So, আজকের পডকাস্টটা হচ্ছে, on a personal note, right? It's about money. So, Zarif, আমার প্রথম প্রশ্ন, টাকার মিনিংটা কি তোমার কাছে?
That's a very personal question. Look, the most obvious answer is money is a means to an end, right? If you earn money, you're able to enjoy the things that are exciting and interesting to you. We also earn the right to have freedom and not to worry. But I think the world's a bit different today. I think prices are increasing, choices are infinite. I mean, I think about my family, and there's so many things that they could spend their money on. So for me, money has now become a mechanism to set my priorities because, in an infinite world, money is in fact finite. And so it comes down to choice. So money for me is teaching my family and myself about choice and being able to choose the things that are most important for my family and me.
So, family and me. And I think that's the most common relationship, right? It has to help us and our family. So, তোমার কত বছর বয়সে তুমি প্রথম বুঝলে যে টাকা is an important factor in life এবং সেটা কি হবে?
So I grew up in Dhaka, and life was in fact pretty good growing up in Dhaka in the 70s and the 80s because everyone had about the same, so we really didn't know the difference between those who had and those who didn't. Most of us were middle class folks. But I do remember that when I was young, on special occasions, my dad used to drive my brother, my mother, and I to the Pan Pacific Shunarga, and we would have the all you could eat buffet. And I remember it was expensive, and for my parents, it was a treat for special occasions. And at that young age, I realized that my parents were making a choice. So the pleasure of watching their children enjoy themselves, have a nice meal, was worth the money that it cost. And it meant maybe there was something else that we couldn't do, but money and choice was something that was embedded in me at a very young age. And I realized that you will have money and you will have choice, but it was at that very young age when I saw my parents making choices that I realized that money was a means by which you start thinking about the choices you have.
So, টাকার সাথে যে মানে টাকার মিনিংটা আই থিঙ্ক তোমার প্যারেন্টসরা প্রথম বুঝিয়েছে এবং মেবি নট কনসিয়াসলি বাট মেবি থ্রু অ্যান ইন্টারাকশন, রাইট? বাট নাও ইউ আর এ প্যারেন্ট অ্যান্ড ইউ হ্যাভ টু
Yes.
কিডস, mashallah.
Yes.
So how are you kind of transferring that knowledge or same kind of insights to your kids, or are you doing or are you consciously trying to do that?
So it's quite funny, because with my kids, I tell them we grew up with not a lot, and I had to struggle, and you need to be aware of struggle because struggle will make you make better choices. And then they look at me and say, yeah, but we have a nice house and you drive a nice car and we go to international school, so
What is
I don't struggle. I don't
Yeah.
struggle. So then I have to artificially create challenge for them. But then I get weak, right? So I'll say, okay, you cannot have this if you do not do that. But in the end, I sort of give in, right? What I will say is that fortunately, we live in Malaysia where it's not the consumer habits are not so pronounced, and so they're able to still be pretty down to earth in in the decisions and the choices and the things that they want. But I will tell you, it's hard. It's very hard to teach children the value of money, um, particularly
in
when
these
you want to offer
times.
them the best you can. It's not
Yeah.
so simple.
So আমি যেটা দেখি যে এখন at least the next generation
Yep,
এটা একটা there is an entitlement, right? আমরা যা চাই তাই পাই, there is a instant gratification and সেটা evolve হচ্ছে in a quite
yep.
accelerating pace. Like, don't you think that will have like a adverse effect at some point in their life because we are not preparing them for the hard life because money is hard.
Yes, I sort of struggle with that, right? Because I think that um, the life that our children will lead will already be fairly complex.
Yeah.
They have to deal with um, studying in a polarized world with an identity which is no longer so simple. Are they Bangladeshi? Are they Bangladeshis living abroad? Um, so I think there are so many different things that they have to deal with that it's not about entitlement, but for me, it's about confidence. And I think the one thing that I do want to instill in my children is to have confidence that, inshallah, if they really are passionate about something, then we as a family can discuss it and we can get to a decision that makes most sense. And I
Hmm.
think that's important because, for my children at least, and I think for all children, what I hope is they're curious and that they have confidence to at least describe the choices and the things that they want to pursue. And that's foremost in their mind before thinking about, can I afford it?
Right. All right. So now I too deep dive.
Yep,
You are at a certain age. You have generate, you know, wealth. So, and this question varies to people to people. So, আমি যদি বলি যে তোমার যে wealth distribution আছে, typically মানুষ যেটা করে যে putting money in stocks or real estate or cash or some kind of financial instrument. So, if I put that basket in front of you, how would you distribute your wealth in percentage?
of course. So, look, for me, going back to that theme of choice, um, the way I think about wealth distribution comes down to the way that I want to spend my money in the next 20 years. And so a fair amount of my money today sits in fairly safe assets, which just makes me able to afford the children's tuition, think a little bit about retirement, think about issues that may come up in my parents' lives or in my life. And for the balance, I end up being fairly bold, in fact, because I think money sitting in a bank account or money being managed by someone else is not very appealing to me. It sort of
Mm.
takes away this notion of freedom and choice and entrepreneurship, all of which is very important. So for the balance of my money, I actually, in fact, invest in businesses. So businesses allow me to be close to entrepreneurs, help and grow others. And I like that. I like the idea of investing in businesses where my mind is active and I can help people. I don't have a lot of money in real estate. I know it's contrarian. People sort of like to hold real estate, but I just think that when you hold a lot of real estate, you just have a lot of headaches because you have to manage property. You never really understand where the property is going to be headed. And I think that works very well for some people. But for
Mm.
me, it really is distributing my wealth between safe assets that allow me not to worry about my kids' future or my retirement, and investing in businesses where I get a real kick out of it.
Great. So you're talking about angel investing?
So I'm speaking about angel investing um, in ideas as well as in businesses that I have a lot of passion around. So the key
Okay,
thing is
so
don't invest in stuff you don't understand. But
right.
if you understand it, then go for it.
So তুমি বলেছো you are bold when it comes to investing in these companies, right?
Yeah.
So so that boldness, is it like 10%, 20% of your exposure of your wealth?
I think it's a bit more than that. I think, for me, it's maybe closer to 25%.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty not bad.
Yeah.
25%.
You know,
Leave a little.
a little bit.
Okay, so our freshman year, you were a sophomore, and at that time, I remember at the library in a conversation, you walked me through your 5-year plan. You're going to graduate. You're going to work with this company. You'll become a partner at that age.
Yeah.
So, and I was like looking at you, it's like, what the hell? I'm just trying to, enjoy college, and here
Yeah.
you are. You have, roadmap. So, এখন তুমি একটা age এসেছো, right? In
Yep.
what is your roadmap in terms of next 10 years? Say by that time you'll be 60. So, what does it look like for you?
I think it's the last 10 years. I think, of course, you always tell yourself you're never going to retire because I
Yeah.
think in today's age, you don't. You just keep learning, you keep evolving,
Hmm.
you keep changing. But I think that the next 10 years is about using your energy productively. And I think that the best advice that I'd give to anyone as they think about, you know, 50 to 60, 40 to 50, is find a few things that you think can be really big and invest your time in a few big ideas and surround yourself with people who constantly push you. And I think one of the mistakes that I see is capable people who underestimate what they can accomplish. And so you need people around you who can push you a little bit, who can really sort of stretch your thinking and make sure that you remain focused, but you are bold in what you're trying to do.
Okay. So now that you have so much experience in your bag, right? And much more wiser Zarif. এখন তোমার সাথে যদি তোমার 20 বছরের জরিফের সাথে দেখা হয়, তাহলে তুমি ওকে কি অ্যাডভাইস দেবে?
I'd, I'd tell the 20-year-old, just keep it real. Don't worry, keep it real. I told you this. I thought it was really interesting because um, many of my friends have gone down very different paths. So some went into family businesses,
Hmm.
some were professionals, um, some, in fact, became investors. And when I end up catching up with them, it's really surprising that we all end up at sort of the same point at this age, which is you end up with enough, you end up with um, a pretty good idea on what you're good at and what matters to you. So I think what I would say to myself is there are many different paths that you can go on. Just choose a path, be happy, and know that you're going to end up, inshallah, where you're going to end up, and you're going to be just fine. Because I look at all the different paths that my friends have taken, and the only commonality is that they pursued what they're passionate about, but we've all ended up sort of at the
Hmm.
same place, honestly.
So it's like, don't worry, enjoy life. It will
I
work
think
out fine.
I think worry about the right things. I think you got
Worry
to
about the
enjoy
right
life,
things.
but worry about the right things. And the right things to worry about include your family,
Hmm.
include developing a sense of purpose, and understanding what you're good at and what you're not good at, and really trying to find a way to keep close ties with your friends. Because I think the older you get, the more you end up valuing the friendships you have. And I think just stay close to the friends that you have and build the relationships.
Great. Very philosophical Zarif here.
It's
So
because I've been hanging out
Bangladesh.
with you. Every time I see you, you remind me of the importance of being philosophical.
Thanks. So Bangladesh also, turned 50 recently,
Yep.
and your report kind of looks back and kind of also looks to the future, right? And it has the potential to become, say, $1 trillion economy. So in that respect, an organization can look at a report and make a lot of, assessment and projections. But when a person looks at that report, right, at the individual report, individual context, what can they, take away from this report, and so that they can actually use it in their life, and especially in wealth creation?
Got it. So, I'll start with a very simple quote. And the simple quote is, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're entering a period, though choppy, of a rising tide. And then I would describe to you what wealth, in fact, can be broken into. So, wealth is broken into your ability to grow your business. Wealth is then broken into the amount of profit that you reinvest in the business. And then it's broken into the amount of dividend you take out of the business. And of course, there's this implied multiple associated with your business, which is out of your control, but it's to do with the market that you're in. So if you say that I can do nothing about the external value of my business, I happen to operate in Bangladesh or happen to operate in a particular country, then you've got choices. And those choices are, do I focus on growth? Do I focus on investing in my business to enable that growth? Do I think about taking dividend? What I found is most businesses that I've met in Bangladesh and most business owners are in fact doubling down on their business. So they've made a choice to believe in the market. They've made a choice to believe in their business. And instead of taking significant dividend, they're in fact reinvesting in the business and really trying to focus on growth. And I think that's pretty remarkable. Now, that does have a little bit of a short term impact on the way that you think of the value of the business. But I'll tell you that in the midterm to long term, that ability to be singularly focused on a market, be focused on a business, and to invest in the business to grow it, it probably makes a lot of sense. It's the foundations for long term sustained success.
Okay, lot high funder. How can you simplify that, say, more of a singular sentence for like common people? I know
If
you're
you
from
if you ha-
VCG, so dumb it
if you
down.
have money, if
Yeah,
you have money,
yeah.
put the money back in your business
Okay, reinvest in Bangladesh.
in Bangladesh. If you got money, put the money back in your business.
Great. So it's a very comprehensive report and a lot of data, and it's very hopeful report, but it's based on data, and then
Yep.
there's a projection, right? So, what was the most interesting insight? Like, I know you worked on it a lot, you have other colleagues working on it, but personally, I'm sure you have your kind of favorite, right? Okay, this is
Yeah,
something
yeah,
you
of
took away.
course.
So, what was that insight for you?
So I think there are two things. The first is um, going into writing the report, which, by the way, was a combination of in-depth interviews of about 30 companies, as well as running some analysis on businesses in general. What for me was really interesting was that there's no shortage of challenges, but every one of the businesses that we highlighted that were successful were able to navigate the challenges. If your
Mm,
supply chain is broken, you try to find new sources of raw material. If your customers care about sustainability, you hire a chief sustainability officer. So that innate ability to survive despite challenges that come, that survivor mentality, I thought was really exciting and interesting in the companies for me. That's probably yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing. There
do
are
you
other
know what
things,
it?
of course, but for me, that ability to navigate challenges, I thought was just fabulous.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
What?
Driving in Dhaka.
It's true. It's very true, huh?
All right. So বাংলাদেশে এখন যেই স্টেজে এসেছে, I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sure a lot of companies and families, they're probably creating generational wealth,
Yep,
right? এটা probably 20 years back আমরা চিন্তা করতে পারতাম না. So
yep.
how do you see people are creating that wealth in Bangladesh right now? And for that matter, if you can explain what is generational wealth, because maybe a lot of people don't know what it is.
I myself don't know what it is, but my assumption is you have enough where the folks who come after you don't have to worry as much about getting started. All they have to
Two,
do is
three,
building.
two, three
Yeah,
generation.
that's right. You have to build on it. No, so like, there's a couple of things. Like I listened to an interesting podcast where it spoke about how it's really hard for businesses to survive into the third generation.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is the founder has a great instinct. The
Hmm.
founder's children embrace that instinct.
Yeah.
The founder's grandchildren have no concept of that instinct, and they just sort of, do what they think they should do, and they don't bring in professional management. And if you don't
Right.
bring in professional management, it gets really, really hard, right? So for me, the big thing is about discipline. And discipline doesn't come from um, yourself. In fact, when you run a business, the easiest thing to do is to keep doing what you're doing and hoping it makes sense. The trick to discipline is to have an ability for a third party to constantly remind you of what's working and what's not working. It's about having the ability to decide, but engaging with outsiders to give you ideas, to tell you where, you know, it doesn't make sense. And I've seen very successful business people in Bangladesh being very humble and being
Hmm.
very open to listening. So I think the key to success, Shagor, is for people who want to create intergenerational wealth,
Yeah.
the founders and the founders' kids are pretty humble, they're pretty hungry, and they're very happy to meet outsiders and just listen. They still make the decision, but they're very happy to sort of listen and absorb and then make decisions. And I think that's a very important skill.
So it's almost like getting a coach, right? Somebody's gonna basically kind of give you that advice or insights because they can look at your weaknesses and can tell you where to improve.
So I
That
think I think there's an element of getting a coach, but
mm,
there's so many coaches out there. The key is you need to just keep talking to people and listening. The art of listening is something that is very, very important.
right, great. So in your profession, you are dealing with a lot of families, family offices,
Yep,
both in Bangladesh and outside of Bangladesh. So
sure.
what are the common three traits that you see that these people are using to kind of preserve their generational wealth or create their generational wealth?
Okay, so I think the first thing that I've seen is this idea of a family office and a family charter. And so that's important because it forces the different members of the family to sit down together and say, what's the point of all of this?
Mm,
And what does success mean for each one of us? And what's the degree to which we want to preserve capital versus deploy capital? And so that's really important because it's a forcing mechanism where you allow each person in the family to have an opinion on where they want to head. Not everyone wants to be in the business. Some people want to run foundations. Some people want to become innovators. So I
mm,
think having the ability to have a family office and a family charter is the first thing that I've seen that's really important. The second thing is this idea of preserving cash for meaningful new businesses. So successful families that I've seen have a habit of taking risk, being bold, but preserving cash for the right opportunity. Life is really, really long, especially when you think about multi generational wealth creation, right? And
mm.
so there's going to be opportunities all the time. And so having an ability to just preserve cash and deploy it when you need it is a very important thing. Just because you don't want to spend all the time in small amounts, you want to spend in big amounts, but appropriately. And the third thing that I've seen is they instinctively understand what they're good at and what they're not. And if they're not good at it, they sort of listen to it, they shrug it off, but they don't necessarily get into it. But if they're good at it, they really go after it, right?
Right.
So have the family charter, preserve a bit of cash, and know what you're good at.
So again, going back to that element of your, investment thesis where you invest in companies, and usually what happens, like in typical investment in terms of special startup scenario or idea companies, a lot of these fails, right? So obviously you may have lost money. So what did you learn from losing money in terms of investing in companies, and if you could share with our audience?
Don't invest in what you don't understand.
Okay.
If you don't get it, don't invest in it. Might be the
Say
best idea in
one
the world, but
So Warren Buffett used to say the same thing, but now he's investing in Apple, and that's he gave it the biggest return from his portfolio. So don't you want to kind of sometimes risk a little?
of course, of course, of course, right? But this is money that I may be willing to lose. I mean, I'm a big
Okay.
fan of gaming. I'm a big fan of the metaverse. I remember how you and I, when we were in college, played a game, missing class, missing sleep. And when that game finally we got to the end, we didn't know what to do. We couldn't, I don't think we found another game. But for that one semester, we were so addicted to that game, right? So I love gaming and I believe in the metaverse and I think it's going to be unique and different. I don't know how to invest in it.
Hmm.
Um, do I buy an NFT? Do I buy a Bitcoin? Do I actually
Hmm.
go find a company that's building games in the Web3? I don't know. And I'm willing to listen to ideas because I do think it's really quite game changing. And I do think, let's take Bangladesh, where you've got 500,000 gig workers. I think it's a space where there's going to be a lot of opportunity to employ these people if we can do it right. I just haven't figured out how to invest in it.
Um, is it because that it's too complicated and the monetization aspect, it's still not kind of clear for most people. So it's basically kind of turns into almost like a gambling. It's like having a faith and then hoping that it will turn out somehow. Is that where the stage is?
I think we are a little bit in that stage. And if I was to gamble, I can think of different things that I could do to gamble
Mm,
with my money. Like maybe
right.
I'd gamble on a great vacation. I don't know what it'd be, but I'd gamble on a great vacation.
So we are almost at the last stage of a conversation. So uh, again, looking at money and how people are making money, one of the things that's happening in our part of the world, like uh, we had like folks like Bikash or Nagot, where the money is now becoming digital, right?
Yep.
So, do you think if Bangladesh has a case for crypto or some sort of digital money where we can make this money more inclusive? Because trust, when you have to deal with physical money or banking, it's not very inclusive, right? So, where do you see, our fintech moving towards, say, maybe in 10 years' time? Because right now it's more about moving money from point A to B, right? It's like money transfer. But do you think we can go beyond that? And if it go, what kind of think money transformation will happen in Bangladesh?
So, I'll tell you a couple of interesting anecdotes, right? The first is I think a leapfrog is going to happen
Hmm.
from conventional banking to digital banking. And that's simply because peer-to-peer lending is pervasive already. The amount of lending that Bkash does or Nogot does, not lending, but just sort of transfers,
Transfer,
is
yeah.
significant. It's really significant. And if you have 50 million customers or 60 million customers who trust in your brand and trust in your ability to transfer from point A to point B, it essentially means you operate in a digital non-banking environment where the banks don't necessarily have to do clearance, right? If you add to that the fact that you have companies like ShopUp or Patao who are creating platforms for people to travel or people to transact in goods,
Hmm.
then you have an entire economy that is not reliant on the formal banking channel. It's reliant on, either cash or digital payments. So I think if you were applying a slightly looser definition on digital, you would find that Bangladesh today is pretty fintech savvy, more fintech savvy than you would think based on the traditional definition. Now, my next point, which is I was talking to a crypto platform, and they were telling me, bro, do you know that Bangladesh is one of the most attractive Asian markets for crypto? And I said, that's impossible. Crypto is not permitted. And they
Hmm.
said, well, I don't know about that because on our platform itself, there's a
The
hundred
volume is
million
there
US dollars of crypto that are transacted every month. And I said, are
for
you
from
kidding me?
Bangladesh market.
Just Bangladesh market, money in and out,
My
$100 million on one platform. That's one platform, by the way. And the average crypto wallet size is the size of Philippines. So I said, that cannot be true. They said, yeah, yeah, yeah. The wallet's the size of Philippines, and the transaction volume is 100 million on our platform alone, which is 1.2 billion on our platform alone. I said, how is it possible? And I said, that's because people who travel in and out, who are foreign workers,
yeah,
just load up and buy crypto, and then they change the
trade.
crypto when they get to the destination because they think it's much safer and more efficient
Wow.
than changing from taka to dollar and managing the intermediaries. So it's already happening, Shago. So it's not like I'm saying anything new. So
Right.
digital finance and alternative finance exists already. It's just not regulated and recognized. But it's like in any free market environment, right? Regulations often play catch up to
Right.
what's happening in the market, right?
Yeah. Right. And it's a fantastic insight. I didn't know, like, and you talked about that, our blue collar worker going up and coming back and using as a currency to kind of hedge their
Yeah,
convenience factor of
that's right.
transferring the money. It's amazing. I know that even in the Ukraine war, we saw the current
I
crypto
know.
actually
It's
reaching a
amazing, right?
place, right? It's in like the safe place to kind of convert your currency.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So one of the things I'm going to talk about is I promise last question or second last question is I think we had that conversation in our hotel. We talked about metaverse and crypto
Yeah.
and the potential. And one of the things that NFT does is like you can fractionalize
Yep.
an asset, and a lot of people can participate. So why do you think we are not able to fractionalize, say some of the stock assets, or like our ticket sizes are so low, so people can't participate. For example, if you have to get a deposit or a fixed deposit, the ticket size is quite high, right?
Yeah.
You can't do like 500 taka fixed deposit for lower income or very poor. Why do you think it's not happening? Because we have the fintech element there, but why
Yeah.
don't we have products here where people, the mass, can participate?
Hey, you're the banker.
Ex-banker,
So,
ex.
I feel like I'm out of my depth answering that one, but I have to believe that, look, there's a cost to open an account from the bank perspective. There's a cost to manage the account from a bank perspective. There's a cost to do a transaction from the bank perspective. And all of these make it very difficult to deal with people who have 500 taka bank accounts. Do you know what I mean? Which is why this alternative form of savings or this alternative form of money transfer is just so popular, right? The wallet. I mean, the reason a digital wallet exists because it's so cheap, you know?
Right.
So I think, look, I think it's happening. It really just
Uh,
comes down to the definition.
so my question is, say, like Nagod or Bikash, who
Yeah.
have that access of
Yeah.
managing money in terms of transferring, why are they not able to do a product with partnering with other
So
banks
because
to do
they
that
don't have the banking
fractionalized?
license. I mean, obviously they're trying to do it. Okay, look,
Mm.
I'll give you a thought experiment, right? So you hear about how 30 to 35% of Bangladeshis have bank accounts.
Yeah.
I bet you if you ask the question, what percentage of Bangladeshis have a wallet, a Bcash wallet or a Nogat
Right.
wallet, it would not be
Far, far
30%.
higher. Yeah.
It would be like
Yeah.
90%.
Yeah.
Because, think about the fact that the mobile penetration in Bangladesh is greater than 100%. The
Mm.
smartphone penetration is, 50 to 60%. If you have a smartphone, I bet you've got a mobile wallet. So I think if you
Yeah.
change the definition of what it means to be part of the formal financial sector, you would find that the penetration is far greater.
Right. Okay, cool. So questions are done. Last question, promise. What was the best advice you got about money?
Gosh, I think I think the best advice I got was enjoy it.
Okay.
If you have money, just enjoy it because your kids are going to use it and you're going to be under the ground, so you might as well enjoy it and make them work for their money.
Okay. Enjoy as soon as you start getting it, or enjoy
No,
and
just
then start
enjoy it. Enjoy
enjoy.
it. Just enjoy the money you make.
All
Life is
right.
short. Enjoy it.
That's the last word from Zarif Munir. If you have money, enjoy it. Thank
Just
you so
enjoy
much,
it.
Zarif.
It's a pleasure.
It's really enjoyed our conversation. Hope to again do this sometime in the
Yeah,
future.
in person.
Yeah, in person. Why not?
Okay.
Take care, man.
Take care. Okay, bye.
Appreciate it. Bye.